Today's episode is all about the Ragebait, because we had a bunch of pro players getting Ragebaited by the online denizens of the net. We had a ton of Valorant games, all sorts of storylines, some stand-ins, a bunch of roster moves to cover, and a lot more games to pick going forward. We're getting a very quick picture of what the Valorant season is going to look like at the end of Stage 2 and heading into Champions. And we're going to cover all of that in today's episode, which is number 15 of Comp Check. But before we do that, a quick word from the sponsor of this video, Sony INZONE, who has sent me their full line of gaming peripherals. The INZONE brand is basically Sony's esports and gaming specific line of peripherals. I've got the monitor. They sent me a mouse pad, keyboard, and headset. I've been using the headset every day, which is the H9 II. I love this thing, honestly. I was a little skeptical because I'm kind of an audiophile, but I really like just the form factor. The audio quality is good enough for me. And I'm going to be honest, the dreaded headphone dent has gotten me with basically every other headset that I've ever used. And these ones are so light that I can wear them for like 5 or 6 hours a day. And they don't hurt my head, which is awesome. That's like enough for me to just want to continue using them. And honestly, I like all the products that they've sent me. I'm using the mouse and the mouse pad, the monitor, the headset. They're all great. So check them out in the description below. The link is down there, as well as the pinned comment. And with that being said, let's hop into our podcast. So as you can see on your screen, we had the infamous Chronically online loser post from Pop and Val. This was a couple months ago, actually. This was in response to a thread on VLR, one of the worst and best sites on the internet for Valorant, titled, I think it was just Poppin ? And obviously a thread like that is never going to be a great thing to click on. But this week we also had Zelsis responding to some VLR comments as well. We had Baby Bay responding to a random fan as well, calling his ace or 4K mid or whatever it was. And I just kind of wanted to talk about this sort of this trend that I've seen of pros trying to like clap back, fight with the fans a little bit or fight with the haters online. And this is just something that there's a discussion. I feel like, I guess it was kind of around the pop-in post time where there's a lot of talk about, what are these pros doing reading these forums? And the reality is, like, I feel the same way. I don't think that the pros should be reading them, but also I understand why it happens, because this is an online job, and part of their job is to be online and to have Twitter accounts. And, if you're looking for VODs, you're going to go to VLR. You're just going to encounter the random comments from the random people of the internet. And you really do have to kind of develop some, I think, strategies as a pro, and teams really need to be helping, I think, players do this to some extent, because I'll just give you an anecdote from my time at GE, which is that when we would finish our series, and unfortunately a lot of them were losses, I would immediately have to go and do a press conference talking about, what happened in the match. And then I would come back to the room, and oftentimes I'd come back to a room that was just completely silent, with everybody just doom scrolling on their phone, in complete silence, looking depressed, reading people being like, nice try, King, or you suck and should be dropped. And the thing is about online comments, and I know this from doing YouTube for, 10 years and just being online, is that the negative comments are the ones that stick with you, unfortunately. You can have 10, 15, 20 people tell you great job or, nice try, come back stronger. But the one person who says you're terrible is the one that you're going to really remember. And this is a super stressful gig. Like, it's a great gig being an esports pro, but it's also very stressful because your job is super performance based, and a lot of your self-worth is kind of caught up in having success. And so when you're not experiencing success, not only are you maybe starting to doubt yourself, but you're also potentially starting to, like, be more susceptible to these types of comments. And I just I'm going to highlight this Zelsis one, because Honestly, I think Zelsis is kind of just being like a little tongue in cheek here, and just he's like, yeah, bro, I definitely called this bad play that you're talking about. But it's the second one. It's like you can tell that it kind of gets to him, right? And say whatever you will about like having thick skin and oh, just brush it off. These people don't know anything, but you're gonna just consume these ideas, and it's just human nature for people to have a little bit of it's just it hurts a little bit, even if you don't want it to, right? And I would intentionally subject myself to this stuff last year because I've been online for so long that a lot of the times I find it funny, but I will read stuff and like it does make me feel bad, and so I would just kind of like read stuff because I was curious, and most of the time I probably should have just avoided it. I don't really think it adds a ton of value to read these, but it's also just human nature to be curious about it. Now, I think Cloud9 and a lot of these teams are kind of in like, it's usually the teams that are in kind of dire straits already that you see these moments from, like, right, Envy was falling apart. Cloud9 is having a very rough time. We'll talk a little bit about that here in just a second, because I have some thoughts on their documentary that they put out. And then G2 is also struggling to kind of really find their form that they're known for. And so they're playing a little bit below expectation. And when you're not meeting expectation and people online are telling you that you're bad, yeah, I mean, it really can become a spiral that you have to be careful of. And so I think it's a really important thing that everybody needs to learn how to deal with when you go into a professional esports career. You have to figure out how to cope with this type of thing, because it's almost impossible to avoid it. And teams having like, oh, confiscating player phones for the match day or something like that. It's like, it's not really realistic to do those types of things. So I really just think like, I would caution players, try to leave the phone down for at least a few hours after your match, good or bad, and enjoy the win, or kind of just like understand the loss and spend it with your teammates. And then when you do decide to go online, just be aware, like there's going to be stuff out there that is not going to be helpful to you, and you just have to understand, like, maybe don't click that thread, or even if you do see it, unfortunately, it's like there are people that are rooting for you as well. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that real quick, because I do think it is a very kind of strange part of being a professional figure these days, with how online everything is and how everybody's just always trying to like get the clip, get the reaction, get the rage bait. It's a very weird thing to have to deal with as a professional, and everybody just has access to you because we're all online. Now, staying on the Cloud9 topic, I really want to talk about this, because this is the manager of the Cloud9 Valorant team talking about their Scrim win rate in a documentary that they put out recently, and it's just a little crazy. So I just wanted to play this, and then I'm going to react to it.
And over that time, we played about, I don't know, somewhere from like 75 to 100 scrims I checked, give or take a few, and had about a 20% win rate. 20 to 30%, according to our scrim tracking tool. So there's a lot of scrimming and not a lot of progression.
So 20% win rate in scrims is insane. That is incredibly low. And just for perspective, maybe I'll get in trouble for showing this, but I have the scrim tracker that I kept last year for GE. And I will show you what the stage 2 scrim win rate was for our team. And our team was, to be clear, we were not doing super well. We obviously only won one game in stage 2. We could have won more, but here's our scrim win rate. Now, I will say that in stage 1, I'll show you the overall win rate. This was the entire year, almost 60%. In stage 2, I specifically scrimmed only teams that we had about a 50% or lower win rate against, because I felt like in stage 1, we got some really bad information about our comps and formed some bad habits because we were playing teams that were too easy. And so we would just outskill them and not get punished for stuff. And so I actively would blacklist teams that we were owning in scrims because I didn't want inflated numbers, and I wanted the players to have to like essentially struggle to get better as often as possible. And even with me like curating only hard scrims and actively getting rid of the teams that were easy for us to beat, we still had about a 50% win rate. And you can see it kind of varies depending on the map, and you know, the comps that we were playing and stuff like that. And so even with me intentionally making it as hard as possible for us to win scrims, we were still at about a 50% win rate last year. So 20% scrim rate is, it's like hard for me to imagine. I almost don't even understand how that's possible. And to me, that really just speaks to some serious problems with, I mean, I don't want this to turn into just like a bashing the players or the coach or the org or anything like that, but like there has to be some serious problems with how they're even running practice or something, because I just don't understand how you can only win 20% of your scrims. Like you have tier 1 players on your team and you're playing teams, and I mean, I'm going to be honest, I've been scrimming in NA a bit recently. And there's some good teams, but it's just like Pacific last year. You're going to play some tier 2 teams, you're going to play some tier 1 teams. Only winning 20% of your scrims is like, it's, again, I just genuinely can't understand how it's even possible, because you just have to be like adjusting and trying to, you know, fix the problems. And I suppose they are doing that, but it just is, it's like mind blowing to me when I hear that number. And so I can totally understand why they're having problems and why Zelsys is getting upset if every day they're just going to scrims and losing and losing and losing and losing and losing. I mean, the atmosphere in the practice room at the end of the day just has to be awful. Like it has to be awful. I had a couple days last year where we would lose like 3 or 4 scrims, and it was depressing and people were not having fun. But it didn't happen very often because we would just, I don't know, we would adjust and we would fix things and we would, you know, have specific focuses. And it's just insane. 20% scrim win rate is genuinely crazy to me. So yeah, I don't really know what's going on at Cloud9, but I just have to, you know, give a word of advice, like just don't go online, don't fight with the fans, and, you know, just do something different. Like whatever you have to do, just start working on like one thing at a time. Even if you have to go back to basics, like you can't just, if 100 scrims, 20% win rate, like that's crazy. It's like a systemic failure of unbelievable proportions to me. Unless they're literally only scheduling scrims against like 100 Thieves, Energy, Leviathan, then maybe I could understand that, but I don't think that's what they're doing. So yeah, it's just nuts. Okay, now there's a couple other big stories that I really want to talk on before we get into like the games and the predictions and stuff like that. And also throughout today's episode, I'm going to be adjusting my power rankings. Now I will say also, the amount of games that are being played right now are insane. Like everybody's doing these super weeks now. And I mean, just look at the Chinese schedule. It's ridiculous. They played so many games and it was incredibly difficult to follow them all. And I did my best, but I definitely skipped a few games here and there, specifically in China and EMEA, because I just like couldn't physically watch them all. I tried, but it is what it is. Okay, so there was a couple interesting things that I wanted to talk about. We had some stand-ins coming in. We had Marved coming back to competitive play, standing in for John Cutie, who had a appendicitis episode and had to go into surgery, which is, I mean, here's the thing, man. Like these these things that can happen during a season are really just sometimes, you know, an act of God, I guess. It's like it's really a little bit random sometimes what happens to your season, you know? I think one thing that is very fortunate for these teams that hasn't been the case in previous years is that stage 2, as important as it is, the earliest parts of it are a little bit less important, right? Because we have um every single team making it into the play-ins. Doesn't matter how well you do in group stage, you make it into the play-ins. So whereas, last year, if you start off your stage like with 2 losses, your season might just be over, right? If you're not in contention for champs points. But if you go 0-5 in stage 2, you still get a chance to play through the play-ins. So all that really matters is that you peak going into play-ins or into playoffs, depending on where you finish. And so stuff like this is actually okay for these teams, right? Marv comes in, stands in for Sentinels, puts them at a huge disadvantage because John Cutie, their IGL and potentially best player, is out. But it doesn't even matter. Sentinels goes on and wins. They beat Cloud9, who is struggling. And even this might not even matter for Cloud9. There's a chance that Cloud9 could come in to play-ins with a totally new system, maybe even some new players, even though they've already made a bunch of roster moves, and they could go on a run as well. Likewise, we had Nats getting subbed out for the day because he had a child. Congratulations, Nats, Daddy Nats. I mean, that's another thing that's really important. It kind of like circles back to this whole conversation about what it's like to be online is, I mean, these are humans, right? Everybody is a human here. And so these players are, they have lives. Nats has a kid and is now ready to come back and play for the team. But while that's going on, like I was thinking about this, I didn't even really, it didn't register for me because I experienced the opposite side of the spectrum where you only get those 5 games. And if you don't make it into playoffs off the 5 games, then it's over. And so I'm thinking about this. Oh, Nats is out. And even for an event like, the birth of your child, it's like, wow, that really is going to tank their season potentially because you can't afford to lose a game, right? But, and they did, right? They got annihilated by Eternal Fire because they had their coach playing, which is like, it's whatever. You can't really judge them when their head coach, who hasn't played a game in a long time, is subbing in for them, dropping, let's see, not to flame Lohan too much, but what did he drop here? A 0.52 rating, right? Unlucky. It's better than I would have done for sure. But I was really worried for Liquid initially because I just didn't even really realize that they had, they have time. They have a little bit more time than some teams. But also, I mean, the stage is happening super, super rapidly with all of these super weeks. So there isn't actually that much time, but there is a little bit of buffer zone. So you do have, the opportunity to have a stand-in for a moment like this or to make a roster move. And that's another thing that I just wanted to touch on real quick is like, we've seen quite a few roster moves already, right? They're still happening, and I would not be surprised to see more because, for a team like Heretics, right, who's now sitting at 0-1, and if we think about their champs points, we bring up the champs points, right? Heretics is currently number 3. And if it becomes clear that they're not going to make it through champs points, like if they lose their next couple of games, we might see roster changes, like legitimately, because this is it, right? This is the last year of this cycle of partnership. And Riot is very clear, like performance is very important. It's important that you have a well-run org and your money is all good and your sponsors don't conflict and you're a good partner to them. But performance is also very important because performance is probably the number 1 metric for creating fandom, right? There's a reason that PaperX has the most fans out of any VCT team because these guys win. They win all the time. They have the most good finishes of any team, basically. And so they have a bunch of fans because they win. And Riot knows that. The teams know that. And the bundle sales also reflect that. And so you have to win. You have to win in this game. And so, every single player, I would say, is kind of on the chopping block right now. And I think, again, that kind of adds to this extra pressure that these players are potentially feeling, causing them to realize, like, this is it, potentially. because you never know what's going to happen next year. Like all these rosters are probably going to get dropped, and then people get reshuffled, and obviously there will be a lot of players that you recognize in the teams next year, but the teams are going to be different, and so nothing is guaranteed right now. So there's a lot on the line. And speaking of that, we had a huge roster move just recently, which is Calm replacing eeiu on Furia, right? Furia started the year off incredibly hot. They looked really good. They were first seed at Santiago. And then they kind of bombed out, maybe some inexperienced stuff going on. They're playing better competition all of a sudden. And then they come back in stage 1 and they're okay. But obviously they don't qualify for London. They start making some roster moves. And now, even after starting stage 2 with eeiu on the roster, after one game, boom, roster move. Now, I don't think that this roster move was like because of the game, right? That's not what happened. It's not like they lost to Lev and then dropped eeiu because they lost to Lev, right? I was actually fairly surprised with how decent Furia looked, right? They're a fairly new team with the new additions of Shy and Basic. They are still kind of coming together. They've got some interesting role issues to resolve, and eeiu performs relatively well. They lose a fairly close series, and then they drop their player. And now I know the discourse online is like, why on earth are they dropping their player who probably has the best stats on the team, or a player who's notoriously not statistically very strong, and has had a pretty rough season so far. If we just bring up Calm, you can see, the season he hasn't been playing that well, but he's also been IGLing for the first time. And that's a lot of responsibility to pick up and still trying to continue playing at the same level that he was. But it's been a while since Calm. I guess he was pretty good on Lev, but it's been a while since he's kind of been at the peak that he was when he won champions. But he has won champions, and I think if we just kind of look at this roster for Furia, right? We've got Artson, who is on, I think, his second year now. He might have played like one game in the year previous, but he's not like super experienced. He's continuing to IGL, I believe. Basic is a rookie. Shy has been up and down. He's been in tier 2 recently, re-promoted back up. Obviously, he was on crew for several years before. Koala Noob is a rookie. Right? I think this is his first year, right? Or wait, no, he had a Navi stint. So, but regardless, like none of the players in their team have had a ton of success before, right? They've been decent, but they don't have like the same level of experience playing in big games that Calm does, right? None of them can say that, hey, I won champions in front of 15, 20,000 people in my home city or in my home country. But Calm can say that, right? And there was sort of like a heartfelt post from eeiu that he put out, I think today, just sort of talking about like, I don't have any beef with anybody, sort of just like a difference in opinion about how to play the game. And they wanted a player who was good at certain things, that, like me and Calm are different players. They wanted like his qualities over mine, and that's fair game. And I think the reality is that it is fair game. Like if Furia is diagnosing that we need a player that has these specific characteristics, you got to go out and get them, because again, like this is it. Like Furia is probably not going to make partnership next year unless they go to champions and show that they have what it takes to like make the hard moves, develop the fan base, win some big games. That is what could potentially push a team over the edge into the partnership slot. And so you kind of have to do these things if you think that they are correct as a coach and as management. Now, that being said, this might be a total disaster, right? This might be a total disaster. They might have done another team a favor by dropping a player like eeiu, who a lot of people think is very, very good. And they might have ruined their team. It's totally possible. We'll just kind of have to see how it plays out. And that's sort of like the beauty of these esports, is that a lot of chaos happens, and then you get some interesting storylines out of it. So, with that being said, I want to kind of move on to the games, but a couple more little news points that I think are really interesting to talk about, which is just um, first of all, GE has now signed a couple of coaches to join Platoon. He played his first match, got his first win as a head coach, but he was in the booth alone, and now he won't be. So GE has brought in Fields, who was the assistant coach for Boom, and I think became the head coach at some point over the last year. I think he also had experience coaching in India as well. And then Amix, who was the coach of Naus and helped develop, people such as Poppy and Javi and Patman and, Zan and PTC. And so like there's a lot of history of him working with good players. So I think that these are some good additions to GE. I scrimmed Naus a ton last year, and I think that they were one of the better tier 2 teams that we played on a consistent basis. They were responsible for some of those lower stats. And then Fields, I think, did some very good work at Boom. I remember thinking that some of the stuff that they were doing was really smart, and I would assume that he had, taken part in creating that. So I think these additions are very good. My one worry now is that we've got a little bit of some factions growing, right? We've got Platoon, the head coach. Now we've got two other people that have been head coaches for longer than Platoon has been a head coach, one of which has two players who are his former players. So there's going to be some interesting, relationship management that needs to happen here for this team. And there's also going to be a lot of voices with a lot of opinions that might differ about how the game should be played. So navigating all of that is going to be very interesting for global esports. And so, it could go very well. It could also go very wrong. It might also just kind of be, a nothing burger. We'll just have to see. I mean, they play Full Sense this week, and boy, is that going to be interesting to watch. Oh boy, that is going to be very interesting to watch. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and hop into the games. We can just quickly look at my pick'ems for this week. We didn't do particularly well. I feel like a lot of these games were kind of 50-50s, but Secret losing to Varel, but then beating Secret losing to Varel, but then beating DRX was definitely surprising. Full Sense beating Nongshim was fairly expected given Frost's history against them, and Nongshim coming back from EWC. Nongshim starting 0-2 is tough, but also not that surprising. I mean, DRX triple duelist, we'll talk about that when we analyze their next game. And then we had GE beating RQ, which I think was kind of expected, given that RQ is, I think, kind of on a downward trajectory right now. But yeah, I mean, if we look at the Pacific standings, and you were to just kind of like not have watched any of the games, but just have known about the scene, and all of a sudden you look at this, and you see Varel, Japanese team, Ascension team, Team Secret at the top, Gen G. I mean, that kind of makes sense. Global Esports, and then below them you've got Nongshim, who won a Masters. You've got DRX, PaperX, T1. I mean, I guess T1 is 1-0, so that they're not really below these teams, but PaperX at 0-1. It's kind of crazy. It is only 1 week, and there will definitely be some rapid development of these standings going forward. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about the matches that we have this week, and we can do some predictions. So we have Global Esports against Full Sense is the big one. Now, Full Sense played well against Nongshim. I know that there's a huge... Okay, we have to talk about Primi Deadlock, because I've seen a lot of people flaming Full Sense and Frost for putting Primi on Deadlock after he dropped an ungodly level of performance playing like Jet and Primary Duelist in Stage 1. But what people have to understand about this is that Primi likes playing Deadlock. He really likes playing this agent. It was like one of his favorite agents to play last year. And he also, I don't think, likes playing Neon and being the hard entry on Neon. And these types of comps that they're running are specifically designed to beat Nongshim. Now, I know that because I also specifically switched to playing some Deadlock and Cypher or double Senti comps because I was scrimming Nongshim a bunch last year and Neon was very strong. And I knew that having the ability, like, so one thing that I think people don't understand about Deadlock is, like, even if you don't think the agent is that good, for a Neon, it feels terrible to play against. And even if the utility doesn't get that much value, like, overtly in the round, like, you're not always just netting the Neon as they come in, the fact that they have to be aware of these stuns and they have to be aware of the wall and the grav net makes the Neon play differently. And that just simple fact of potentially slowing down Danby because he doesn't feel comfortable just sending it into a Cypher Deadlock site potentially changes his habits and how he plays, and it totally affects the entire speed of the game. And you can see that. He had the lowest rating on his team. Like, this is a player who I believe won MVP at Master Santiago playing the hard entry running in on Neon, right? He has looked unbelievable this year. And this is one of the worst games that he's played. And even though Primi had an even lower rating, even though Primi had only one more frag than the bottom fragger on the losing team, even though Primi's stats don't look great, this was definitely partly responsible for this win. And people just need to understand that. Like, unless you've actually been a player and you've felt what it is like to experience, having to change your habits based off of what your opponents are doing, you have no idea, like, how much this affects you. And it really does. It really does. And so I think that this is, number one, I think these comps are great against Nongshim specifically. I would expect them not to play the same comps next week against GE because GE is a completely different team. And I would expect a very interesting series because I genuinely don't know how to predict this one. We have, I mean, what I will say is if if Frost loses this after going on like 12 podcasts to talk about sort of airing the grievances, I mean, it's not like he was like directly hard flaming the team constantly, but GE has been very quiet about this whole situation. Frost has been fairly loud about it. There's been a lot of discussion, and I feel like there is a insane amount of pride and tension riding on this game. And I kind of feel like that extra pressure might get to the players a little bit. From what I remember last year, when Frost played against Termi, when they had, that whole beef thing, I'm pretty sure, I think it was this game, I'm pretty sure they played really poorly. And they got kind of owned. I think this was the series. I could be wrong, but I think this was the one. And so I'm really, really interested to see how that affects both sides of this game. I think that I probably am gonna pick GE here. And am I? And I don't know actually. No, I think I have to pick full sense because I mean I just like if Frost loses this, it's it's like Armageddon, right? For him and for this team. I just can't, like, they must be working so there's gonna be so much pressure. I don't know. I'm gonna pick full sense because I have them higher in my power ranking. I felt a little bit weird about GE's win over RQ. Like, I don't think RQ looks good. GE did beat them, but they also got kind of owned on Summit. Um, but yeah, man, I don't know. I really have no idea how to pick this game. I'm gonna go with Full Sense because I feel like their team. I just like kind of have to believe that this is the only game that matters to Frost and this team. Um, but man, I mean, it might go GE's way. It really might go GE's way. I feel like Full Sense beating Nongshim, they've got a little bit more momentum. I don't know. It's really hard to call this. Anyway, we're gonna move on. Okay, T1 against Veral is also pretty interesting. Obviously, Veral got their first win on the global stage. Foxy9 had an insane series. He just went absolutely nuts. And I don't necessarily see that happening again. Also, I don't really think that Veral played that well. Like, they kind of just ran around and shot people. Like, I feel like Team Secret they looked pretty bad in this series other than Zeus. It was close. It was back and forth. I think Veral's definitely gotten a bit better, but I also still think that they're kind of like that. They're still kind of that that team that just like runs around and doesn't really have a plan that much and really relies on individual mechanics and stuff to get them over the line. I just don't really see that working against T1. But I will also say that T1 is in a really weird spot too, because their roles are super, super strange. I mean, they beat Paper X, but they have Buzz playing Smokes and secondary duelist. They've got Meteor on like primary op duelist, and he looks good, but I can still just remember him playing really poorly on Jet in the past. They have eeiu. I mean, their roles are crazy. Like, everybody is playing at least 2 different roles, and that's a little bit scary against a team that just wants to throw you into chaos. I'm still going to pick T1, but I think this is much closer. This could be very close, actually. So we will have to see. Now, Zeta RQ is really interesting, too, because honestly, I didn't think that Zeta looked that bad against Genji. And I think Genji is better than maybe we thought. RQ, I'm kind of worried about. I don't really understand what's going on with Monette and Zan. Monette was playing, even though Zan is their 5th player. I thought Monette was dropped, but I guess he's just benched and then came in to play week 1. Will he be playing in week 2? I have no idea. Personally, I just am not super high on RQ. Not that I'm high on Zeta either, but I think I'm probably going to go with, like, because Jemkin can probably just farm them, but man, I think I'm going to go with Zeta here. I'm like pretty low on RQ right now. I thought they looked decent. Like, some of their players looked pretty good in the Genji match. And I just kind of feel like RQ is relatively easy to anti and counter. Now, Paper X will probably DFM. Again, I think with DFM, like, I don't think they've really evolved as a team. I know Paper X is sort of playing with no stakes, seemingly, but I mean, they still almost beat T1 playing Mix Harbor. We can talk about that real quick. Okay, they played Mix Harbor on Ascent. They won this map. They're playing Yoru. They're playing Mix. They're playing Harbor. Forsaken has now played 28 out of the 29 agents. They almost beat T1. They're double overtime. I mean, they're just going to beat DFM on pure skill. It probably won't be that close. Nongshim Global will be interesting. I mean, ooh, this is a really interesting one too, because Nongshim needs this win. This is a good time to pull up the Pacific points. Nongshim currently still has the 2nd spot, right, by 1 point over T1. But T1, if we look at the T1 schedule, the T1 schedule is Veral, that should be a win. Secret, that should be a win. DFM, that should be a win. And DRX probably should be a win based off of how DRX is playing. But even so, even if they get out of this with 3 more wins, I mean, that's 4 extra points, or that's this standings with T1 at 11 includes their 1 point already. So they would end up with 3 additional points. They would have 14 points. Nongshim has already played twice and lost twice, so they have 0 points through 2 games. If Nongshim loses to GE, they will be 0-3, and then they play Zeta and RQ. I mean, both of those are losable, but probably they will win. So I'm just going to assume that Nongshim gets a couple of wins this stage. I don't know who they're against, but if T1 gets 3 wins in addition to one they already have, and Nongshim has 2 wins, which I think seems fairly reasonable given they've already lost 2 games, we're going to have a tie for the second place of points. And that means they're going to have to battle it out in playoffs, which T1 will have a big advantage in, because I don't think Nongshim is going to be anywhere near that that top spot in their group. I think it's impossible, basically, for them to get top spot in their group at this point. So T1 will have a big advantage. So Nongshim needs to win. They need to win this global esports game, because they need to just rack up some points by winning games. If Global loses to Full Sense, and then they immediately have to play against Nongshim, I know they beat Nongshim earlier, but I still kind of feel like Nongshim can maybe outskill this team. If Global beats Full Sense, they will beat Nongshim as well, I think, and have a very good stage. But if they lose to Full Sense, I think they will probably lose to Nongshim as well. So I'm going to go Nongshim here. And yeah, I mean, this game, I genuinely have no idea. This game is very 50-50 to me, but we'll go with an 0-2 week for Global, unfortunately. Not that I even think that they're bad. It's just, this is like a very, very hard week for them. And considering they're potentially integrating a couple of people, I assume that their coaches have been working with them remotely. But I still assume there's quite a bit of chaos with what they're doing. So I guess we're just going to kind of penalize the chaos for GE this week. Okay, T1 against Team Secret. Again, I think this is definitely losable for T1. I do think that Team Secret has a little bit of magic this stage. Zeus looks like one of the better duelists in the region. And I really think that Team Secret has finally found a solid core of players to build around. Now, DRX is playing some absolutely ridiculous comps. So do I think that this suddenly allows Team Secret to, go first in their group, beating T1 PaperX? No, I don't. I think realistically, Secret probably ends up with 2 wins. All things considered, I'm still going to pick T1 here, but again, I think this game could be close, and this is definitely like a definite upset potential for T1. I'm really tempted to pick Team Secret. I'm not going to do it, but I'm really tempted to pick Team Secret. Okay, PaperX versus DRX. Oh my god. So, I mean, I'm just going to pick PaperX, but I have to talk about DRX real quick, because DRX is playing triple duelists on every single map so far. And now they're getting flamed, probably rightly so. But I also just have to kind of like play the devil's advocate and kind of explain what's probably happening here. So Bane is playing Recon. That makes sense. I think he's IGLing as well. Mako's playing Smokes, of course. His stats have been kind of down this year compared to where, we kind of expect him to be. Part of that was due to him IGLing. I hope that he bounces back, but based off how they're playing, I don't know if that's going to happen. Flicker has now come in and replaced Yong, who replaced him, who was originally replacing Flashback. And he's basically just played Waylay. He was on Crest Gaming, and he's getting loaned to this team. His stats are average, I guess, on Duelist. Hyunmin is playing a bunch of Phoenix all of a sudden, despite being probably one of the more incredible entry players on Jet and stuff in previous years. And Freeing, who was mostly a Sentinel player for them, is now, and also Initiator player, is now playing Neon full-time. I mean, this is a disaster. This is a disaster. Now I will say, freeing stats on Neon are pretty good. Like he's doing pretty well on Neon. And he's just like a mechanical beast. Really, all these players are mechanical beasts. Hyunmin freeing some of the scariest aimers I've ever seen. And I just kind of have to assume that what is going on here with DRX is that they tried out a few different things. They've been really struggling to kind of recreate what they had with the flashback Hyunmin duo, and they haven't been able to find that. And now we're in a meta where, I mean, duelists are just very clearly like the best agents in the game, in terms of like how much they can do on their own. And it's possible that DRX is just like, well, if duelists are the best and initiators have been nerfed this year. Now, I know that initiators and sentinels got some buffs recently, but you know, they're still not that strong. I mean, they're playable, but if I'm Termi and DRX and I believe that duelists are the best agents in the game, why not put more duelists into my comps? I guess is the question. If you have a bunch of players that are basically duelist players and you've been trying to convert them into other roles and it hasn't really been going that well, and we're in a duelist meta, why not just put them all on duelist? And I kind of think that's what's happening. I think that's kind of what's happening. And also, you know, early on in the episode, we talked about scrim stuff and potentially getting bad information from scrims. It's possible that they're just steamrolling teams in scrims because scrims, people are just willing to fight them and they're just like running it down constantly, and teams are trying to practice their strats, and DRX has 5 people hitting the site constantly. It's possible they're just getting bad information. That's definitely something that could be happening here. I also will say that playing some of these maps with no Sentinel is really difficult, and you can see people are just instantly flanking them all the time because DRX is literally just going insta-site hit, insta-site hit, insta-site hit, show on one side of the map, insta-site hit. And so teams are going to figure them out. I don't think that triple duelist on every map is going to work. I think it can work on some maps. You definitely need several layers. You need to be able to like fake hit and throw in some contacts and some defaults and stuff like that. Yeah, this team is wild. This team is wild right now. So with all that being said, I think we can fairly safely pick Paper X over them. Genji RQ, I'm just gonna go Genji because I think that RQ is kind of buns. I don't think that RQ is that good, and I think that Genji, while I don't love their setup, I don't know if I love Ashe playing full-time Neon. They do at least have Charon and Smokes and texture opping a bunch, and that might be enough that they can be a pretty solid team. So those are going to be my picks this week. And let's quickly go ahead and adjust our power ranking. So for those of you who don't understand this power ranking, this is each region in 2 columns with sort of I think is like the strongest and second strongest team in the region, the third and fourth strongest team in the region. Not necessarily that I think they'll finish in this order, but currently how I feel about them, this is how strong I think they are. So Paper X, are they still number 1? I mean, probably, to be honest. They're probably still number 1. I think Nongshim and DRX are definitely going to drop. RQ is going to drop. I think we can definitely put Zeta up, Barrel up a little bit. I think I'm going to drop RQ to the bottom, to be honest. I really am not feeling this team right now. I think Zeta, I think Varel, they did win. Did win a game. Beat Secret. Is Secret above them? They're probably like right next to each other. I guess it's probably Zeta and RQ down here. I think Global is up here. I think Nongshim probably drops a spot. Full Sense. They beat Nongshim. I think I'm just going to leave the top 3 as is. Paper X, Full Sense, T1. This 4th spot is really interesting. I think DFM I think DFM is the worst team. RQ is maybe number 2. Then I don't think I can put GE. I don't think. Okay, DRX is definitely dropping. I think I'm going to put Genji over DRX. I think I'm going to leave, even though Nongshim is 0-2, I think I'm going to put Nongshim in the top 4 because I still think this team is good. I still think this team is good. They've had a very, very hard schedule coming back from EWs. And I mean, that might be a little troll, but we're going to go GE5, Genji 6, DRX 7. I think we're going to go Team Secret 8, Barrel 9, Zeta 10, RQ 11, DFM 12. So we've got PaperX, Full Sense, T1, Nongshim, Global, Genji, DRX, Secret. I guess Secret could even be above DRX because they beat them. So Global 5, Genji 6, Secret 7, DRX 8, Viral 9, Zeta 10, RQ 11, and DFM 12. That's my final power ranking for this week of Pacific. And let's move on to Americas. Okay, Americas. Not as many games as some of the other regions, but we had some pretty interesting ones. I got a lot of the 50-50s wrong. I got Lev over Furia. That was pretty easy. Sentinels over Cloud9 based off of Cloud9's form, even with a stand-in. I mean, granted, losing to a stand-in is tough. It's tough. It was a pretty close series, but the fact that Sentinels beat them with a stand-in and no IGL, or no like main IGL, is kind of an indictment of Cloud9, and also a pretty good sort of showing for the Sentinels system. EG over Envy. I mean, the thing about this, I just think that EG's structure is going to be difficult for a team like Envy to deal with. I don't think that Envy is a particularly structured team. They kind of just like run around and fight. And against somebody like Digizin, who's a very good opper, I think that's kind of a dangerous way to play. So not too surprised by that result. Crew losing to Loud was definitely an interesting one. I want to bring up this because I think that there's a couple of these teams now, a couple of these like super teams. I guess this isn't even really a super team, but like there's a couple of these teams that really seem to mental boom a bit. MIBR being the other one in the Americas region. So Crew wins map number 1. They lose a nail biter on Breeze. Loud guts it out with some crazy plays. And then Crew just gets annihilated. Just gets absolutely annihilated by the Young Guns on Sunset. And this similar pattern kind of happened with the MIBR team. It's one of those things where, like, if you are a team that really just believes in your aim and you lose a close game to some team that you think is maybe worse than you and you might have died in some kind of BS ways, going to that next map, if you don't reset, you're just going to get crushed. And I think that's kind of what happened here. I mean, shout out Loud. I had Erde, the IGL, responding to my initial power ranking, wondering why I put them at 10th. So shout out Erde. I'm going to be moving you up this week. Nice win over Sadak, who's a legend. And then the other match that we had, the other two matches were crazy matches. G2 100 Thieves. I mean, 100 Thieves off the EWC win. Carrying that momentum, beating G2, another really big win for them. I think that G2 has kind of owned them historically, so this was a huge change for 100 Thieves. I mean, they look great. Like, this was a close series for the most part. Really hard-fought games on 2 and 3, map 2 and 3. But I just think that G2 is a little bit... They don't really seem to kind of have that aura of invincibility that they've had in the past in Americas, where they... I feel like they're making more mistakes, like small decision-making mistakes and overextending, and like, you know, just kind of like the small things seem to be a little bit off for this team, and they're still playing well. I mean, Jogamo had an insane map on Sunset. 6-0 first kills, first deaths, 31 kills on Neon, 307 ACS. Crazy good game. But it really kind of felt like in like the small moments, map to map, 100 Thieves were just getting the better of G2. Like Trent had a pretty rough day. And yeah, I guess really other than Jogamo, everybody seemed kind of flat, a little off for G2. And 100 Thieves looks really good right now. They definitely look confident in their system. They are kind of just playing like fairly similar comps on every single map. They really like this Timatino Neon, Asuna, Phoenix, and Cryocells and the Sentinel. They're playing a ton of Cypher actually as well, and they look really good. Like Cryo looks like a absolute aimbot machine. Bora, like everybody on this team can shoot. Bang is clutching. It's a very, very good stage potentially for 100 Thieves. And starting off with a win against G2 is massive. And then the other one, Energy MIBR, was also a banger. Really close. Kind of could have gone either way. And we just saw, I think, kind of the championship mentality is really what we saw in this one, where MIBR stomps Energy. Energy kind of comes back. MIBR closes it out with some individualism. Then they come in on map number 2 and they stomp Energy again, 10-2. But then Energy, they don't give up. They don't give up. And for whatever reason, MIBR just really couldn't find the adjustment. I mean, to be fair, their Breeze comp, solo Harbor, no other smokes, just a Cypher and obviously Neon and Phoenix walls. This is definitely a very attack-sided comp. And so they owned on attack, and then they just didn't really have the answers on defense. And Energy was able to kind of work them. And they eventually come back, and then boom, mental boom. Losing a map like this, losing a 10-2 lead is tough to come back from. Especially for a new IGL. Mazzino, I think, has taken over IGLing for MIBR. Yeah, just didn't have the answers, and I feel like this team completely lost confidence in their game plan and their ability, and they got wrecked. So, shout out Energy. They're very good. They're a very dangerous team all the time. So moving on, let's go through our pick'ems. Lev against EG. I mean, even though Lev was a little shaky against Furia, we're just going to keep going with the kids. They're too good. And you could see it in this Furia match. There was a crazy moment where like it kind of looked like Furia was going to win. And then Owner was pissed. The coach of Lev was pissed. Called 2 timeouts. After that second timeout, I think it was on split. Lev just they're like, oh wait, we're the best team in the world. They were basically just like, I had forgotten for a moment that we were the best team in the world. Oh, it was yeah. So Lev was owning on Haven, and then they got destroyed on Sunset, and they looked really bad on Split initially. And then it was after the second timeout that Owner took, and they just steamrolled the rest of Split. They're like, what are you talking about? Of course we're gonna win this game. We can't lose to Furia. Who is Furia? We're way better than them. And so if Lev has that ability to just turn that switch on, there's no way that EG is gonna beat them. Envy MIBR is a very interesting one, because I feel like this could be a very demoralizing loss for MIBR. They're experienced enough players where they should kind of look at this game and just think, well, we did almost absolutely annihilate Energy and win 2-0, and we just kind of choked a little bit. So realistically, we probably should have won this. But on the other hand, maybe they're raging because they lost and they haven't really figured out, and they've lost some confidence. And if you have no confidence against a team like Envy, that's very bad. That is a very bad thing. But I also just don't know if Envy is a very good team. And MIBR also has a very good opper, which seemed to work for EG. So I'm just going to go with MIBR. If they lose this, I mean, I think they're going to implode for sure. But I think they're just too good to lose to Envy. They've got some nice sort of, they play Envy, then they play Evil Geniuses. They've got some winnable games here before they have to play Lev at the end. So we will see. It's going to be a very interesting week for MIBR. Okay, Furia Energy. I think this is just an Energy. Furia, they didn't look bad, but Energy is just a better team. 100 Thieves versus Crew. Dangerous game for 100 Thieves. Definitely a dangerous game for 100 Thieves, but I think they're just a better team than Crew. I think that Crew has It's going to sound a little harsh, but I think they've got like 3.5 tier 1 players right now. And the other 2 are not really performing at the level that they need to be, which is kind of what they were like in stage 1. And that puts a lot of pressure on the players that like are really, you know, doing a lot of the work. I mean, and Crew's still solid, but I just think 100 Thieves is on another level right now. Like, I would probably put 100 Thieves. We'll get to the power ranking in a second. Okay, G2 is going to be Cloud9. It's just, I don't trust Cloud9 to do anything, unfortunately. Maybe they will surprise us at some point this stage, but I don't think it's going to be this week. G2 should be out for a vengeance. They are very close to securing champs. I think they need probably like, well, I guess with energy in this hunt, it's always going to be a 3-team race. So G2 needs some wins. Like they're fairly comfortably ahead, but also energy is coming, so they need these wins really badly. I'm gonna go with G2. Sentinels Loud should be very interesting. I think I'm gonna go Sentinels. I liked what I saw out of Jerwin, out of Jonah P. I think they played well. I think they've got some good stuff going on with John coming back. They, you know, they should be even better, I would assume. You know, they get their IGL back, who's a very good player. Maybe they were playing with no pressure against Cloud9, but you know, they did win. So yeah, I don't know. I think this is going to be a very close game. I could go either way on this one. I'm going to go Sentinels, but I definitely would not be surprised if Loud won. Lev will beat Envy, and MIBR and Furia. I mean, this is, again, it could be a very close game. I think I'm going to go MIBR again. Does Calm have the answers for Osboss? I just think that MIBR is probably too skilled individually to lose this, but yeah, I mean, okay. What I will say is, if MIBR loses to Envy, they will lose this game as well. But I think they're going to beat Envy, so we'll save the pick'ems there. Form invalid. Okay, so we went Leviathan over EG, MIBR over Envy, Energy over Furia, 100 Thieves over Crew, G2 over Cloud9, Sentinels over Loud, Leviathan over Envy, and MIBR over Furia. Cool. All right, let's move on to EMEA. EMEA has some very interesting storylines. I mean, just look at this. We've got Carmine Core on top, 2-0. We've got Vitality at 1-1. Foot at 1-1. Player teams that went to Masters and did well. And got Heretics at 0-1. So, and just to remind everybody about the point situation in EMEA, we have probably 8 teams that could potentially make it on points. Realistically, it's going to be more like 4, I think. I think the cutoff really is kind of BBL, but maybe Eternal Fire, Fnatic, and Liquid. I guess it really is like 7. I think Gentlemates is probably in trouble, but you never know. There's probably about 8 teams that can make it on points. So every single game is very interesting. Now, we did quite well in our pick'ems. We got most of the games. We missed on Foot over we missed on Navi over Foot. I didn't know that Nats was not going to play this, so lost the coach sub. And then BBL beating Vitality was definitely a little bit surprising to me. But you know, everybody's fighting for those points, so it makes sense. Okay, in week 2, we have Foot over Pacific. I think that's pretty straightforward. Foot did lose to Navi, but I think that this was maybe the worst game that I've watched Foot play all year. And then they really bounced back and they looked pretty good against Gentlemates. Kind of like remembered who they are, remembered that they have good aim, played with confidence. That's just going to carry over into the next week where they play Pacific and BBL. That will be a very interesting game to talk about. And then we have Carmine Core and Fnatic. Ooh, this is an interesting one. I mean, Carmine Core look kind of hot right now. Fnatic is, you know, they weren't convincing against a team with a sub. They won. They beat Giants, but it wasn't that convincing. They had an overtime game. They played fine. Am I really going to pick Karmine Corps over Fnatic? I don't think so. I think I'm going to pick Fnatic here. I think Karmine Corps are good, but I'm going to pick Fnatic here. Eternal Fire and Heretics is really interesting. I mean, Heretics, they were up 10-2 and then lost to Liquid in overtime. And they came back, got kind of owned. I mean, played a pretty close game against Liquid on Ascent and Map 2. I'm not sure how I feel about Heretics. I put them number 2 in my power rankings because they looked pretty good at the end of Stage 1. They bombed out of Masters London. I just don't know how to feel about this team. I mean, I think they will beat Eternal Fire. I feel like Eternal Fire is just like they're like a momentum team. I feel like teams that with more experience should beat them. But if they get rolling, I could see them rolling Heretics. I think I'm going to go... There's also like Turkish Pride online. Oh, man, I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm going to go Heretics. I think I'm gonna go with Heretics. I don't feel super confident. I'm gonna go Heretics though, because I just think they will probably be able to out IGL them a little bit. Navi Gentlemates is also very interesting. I mean, this Navi team looks pretty good. Gentlemates also looks pretty good, but they're very hit or miss. And I think the misses are probably more prominent than the hits for Gentlemates. I really don't love the mini to duelist arc that we've been seeing. I mean, his games have been okay, but this guy's like one of the better Sentinels in EMEA. And so they've put Bippo on Sentinel, and he's been decent. But Mini is way better. There's no like splitting hairs. Mini is just a way better Sentinel than Bippo. And so I'm just not on board for this. And because of that, I'm going to pick Navi. Foot against BBL is very fun. BBL looks like they're kind of on the rise again. Foot also seems to be on the rise. It's all Turks. It's going to be madness. Both of these teams need the win. I think I'm going to pick Foot because I think they're a little bit more sophisticated than BBL, whereas BBL kind of just has like one speed that they play at. And Foot has the ability to kind of mix things up and like change the game a bit, control the tempo. I'm going to go with Foot because of that. Should be fireworks though. Should be very fun. Team Liquid against Fnatic is also going to be very interesting. I think I'm going to go Team Liquid here. I'm kind of high on Team Liquid. I feel like they might have gotten a little bit of a buff here with the comeback against Heretics. I know they didn't look great initially, but I think with Nats back, I'm still not totally sold on Fnatic and their ability to outshoot teams right now. I think their roles are a little bit maybe uncomfortable as well. I'm going to go Liquid here in a chaotic game. And yeah, going to be maybe a little bit of an upset pick. Vitality, I think, will bounce back and beat Pacific. I think they're kind of a free win as they were previously. Eternal Fire, I think, will beat Giants. I think Giants probably stays at the bottom of the pool here. BBL Navi is a huge game for BBL for points and Navi potentially for placement in the group. I think I'm gonna go I think I'm gonna go Navi here. BBL did beat Vitality, but I don't think Vitality played that well. Oh, it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough one. No, I think I'm gonna go BBL. These teams are real. Like it's like the points. Everybody's just kind of like in a giant mass and can beat each other. I'm gonna go BBL here over Navi. Heretics versus Karmine Core, bro. I mean, these games are brutal to pick. These are brutal to pick. I think I'm probably going to go Heretics for the same reason that I picked Fnatic over Karmine Core, which is that I think, based on what Karmine Core is saying, where they're kind of playing like loose and everybody's calling and they're flowing, I kind of feel like that can maybe get countered by a really smart, like good system IGL who can kind of manipulate them. Like Karmine Core will overreact. They have to play two insane teams that are very hard to prep for back to back. I think it's going to be a tough week for Karmine Core. That's going to be my pick. Lock it in. We'll go over China real quick. China is almost done with their group stage. They've been playing an insane number of games. My pick'ems are going crazy as well. I only missed 3 out of the 14 games. I went 11-3 last week with the picks. For week 3, we're just gonna kind of speed through this. AG will beat Titan. I think Titan is just. I mean, this is actually kind of a coin flip, honestly. I could see Titan beating them, but I mean, Titan did beat XLG, right? That actually happened. Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah, they did beat XLG. I mean, AG doesn't look great right now. Oh wait, it already happened. I forgot. Part of this week has already happened. I missed the time to do the pick'ems. AG already won. XLG already won. And oh wait, no, BLG already won. Okay, that's right. AG won, BLG won. I'll do these other picks. I can't actually do them here. I'm going to be casting this game actually on Project Horizon, so be sure to check that out tonight. And I'm going to be casting some Chinese games with Project Horizon. I'll post it on Twitter, so if you guys want to hear me cast some games, you can check that out. I think, I mean, this is a toilet bowl. Both these teams are 0-4. It's like the worst game to be casting. 0-4, 0-4. It doesn't even matter. They do these seeding games and they go into play in. It's irrelevant. I guess I'm probably just gonna go JDG. Actually, no, I'm gonna go with Fung Fung and Delby and Kai. We'll pick Trace. EDG Nova's very interesting. Nova's definitely on the rise. EDG looks solid. I think I'm gonna go with an upset pick of Nova here. That might surprise a lot of you guys. I'm gonna keep going with Darion. Darion, first seed, going to playoffs, going to champs. I have to believe for my boy. This is gonna be a close game, but I'm gonna pick Wolves. I'm just super anti-DRG right now, so AG wins this. Tai Lu, I think, is too good for Nova to beat. And then final game, FPX versus EG. I think EG bounces back. Those are my picks for China. We covered a lot today. I rambled a bunch. Thank you guys for watching as always. Make sure you check out the sponsors down below. And we will see you next week with some more results, some more picks. Thank you for watching.